Welcome to Designed for Organization. My name is Tia Hunsberger, and I am a senior designer at Closet Factory in Colorado. I come on once a month to talk about organizational tips typically I'm with Keli from Organized by Keli, but today one of Keli's teammates, Nisha, is going to be joining me. Let me get her on. Today we're going to talk about home offices. I don't know about you, but the home office in many people's homes have changed over the last year. Nisha, welcome. How are you today?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for joining me today. So we're going to talk home offices today. But before we get into offices, I would like you to just let's introduce you to the audience that's watching. Nisha, tell me a little bit about your background. You work with Keli, and what's your role on Keli's team?
Yeah, so I'm a lead organizer for Keli. I started my own business during the pandemic, and then I met Keli. I was one of her subs for a little while, and then me and another gal, Liz, we were both subbing for her. We decided that we just love Keli, we love each other, we love working as a team, we love working with each other, that we decided to just do it together. And so now Liz and I are some of her lead organizers. So we lead teams, projects, and behind the scenes stuff.
Nisha, what's your favorite part of going into someone's home and helping them organize? Like, what's your calling to work in the industry?
So because I used to be in physical therapy, I think overall, like, service and serving people is like where I feel at home. So I think the biggest thing is being able to go into a space and see like immediate results, immediate transformation, and then them being lifted of a burden. So just like, I can get back to my life. I can get back to like whatever that looks like, back to my family, back to traveling, instead of dealing with just items that are just cluttering their lives. So just helping people. I just love to serve others.
Yes, and for those of you who know Nisha, you can tell that about her the minute you meet her, that she's just got a heart of service, and that just makes her such a great part of the team. So Nisha, we're going to talk today about home offices, and I love the idea of how this relates to your physical therapy background, because you and I talked about that. You were a physical therapist previously. So let's talk about when designing an office. Obviously, over the last 2 years, I've helped a lot of people design new home office spaces in their homes. A lot of people that didn't have to work from home did, or people that maybe worked from home part-time, now we're home all the time, on top of being home with maybe another spouse that they're sharing an office space with, or sharing an office space with kids that were homeschooling as well. So the home office has definitely changed. But let's talk about what you think some of the priorities are in laying out and organizing a home office.
Yeah. So because my background is physical therapy, I see all the ergonomics that go along with like a good office space. So I think the biggest things are to remember, and pain, right? People always complain about like, oh my gosh, my neck hurts, my shoulder, my back. Like I'm sitting there for hours, like, and not that they didn't have that in an office that they went to downtown, but at home it's a little different. You have a different desk that sometimes is your dining room table, and they don't have like an actual like office chair. Sometimes it's like a stool or the couch even.
Yes.
So I think the biggest thing is to remember that ergonomics in a good office, as far as physical therapy goes, is posture. It's all about like the spine being in alignment. So instead of like your head being flexed forward or flexed backwards, or your back being hunched over or curled over, or our shoulders as well. I think it's being able to sit at wherever that is, couch, dining room table, an actual office chair, is being able to sit with your feet flat on the floor with your butt back to the chair and sitting up straight.
I sit up a little taller.
I know, me too. And I think like it's also hard with laptops because they sit on our laps and you kind of like are tended to like look down at them. So like using stuff around the house, whether that's stacking it up or maybe investing into a monitor where you're able to look straight at it, investing in a keyboard so you can keep your hands on the ground and elevate the monitor. So yeah, I think it's all about posture and then switching it up. Like if you're going to go sit on the couch, go for it. But maybe switch to the dining room table, maybe switch to the office, take breaks. You know, I think all of those things with pain and all the things.
Yeah, for sure. I know when I first started being at home more hours of the day in my home office, I just literally for a couple of weeks, I just kept rotating through different chairs I had in the house to find which one was the most comfy to sit in for hours, and that I wouldn't stand up at the end of the day and, you know, with some, I'll call it lower body pain after I had sat all day. So Nisa, when I go in and meet with a client, I always ask them what their needs and the priorities are in the space that we're working on. Do you have any thoughts and insight on what should be close to us in our organizational office space and what should be stored farther away and out of our way to give us room to kind of, you know, maneuver through the space that we have? What's your thought?
Right. So I think when we think of home offices, I think it's such a productive space. So you have to remember that like your focus just needs to be on like whatever you're doing in that moment. So I think the things that need to be at your fingertips hopefully is less stuff. So if you work on a computer, which most of us do these days, the computer.
Right.
I know like my husband works from home and he uses just like a pen and a notebook. Like those are his things that are on his desk: computer, pen, notebook. Other things that like he enjoys having are like business books and things like that. They're in the space, the home office, but they're not on his desk.
Right.
Cluttering what he's trying to do, you know, having these meetings with other people in the business and stuff like that. So I think whatever you use daily needs to be at your fingertips or in the desk even, but right there so you're not moving left to right.
So those are kind of those things that Keli describes as zone 1, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Yep.
See, like I know what zone 1 is.
Yep. And then back stock is always zone 3, zone 4 even. Just, you know, you can get up, go. Sometimes they're even in the garage. I think we have extra, like, my extra, like, physical therapy books are in the garage. Like, I don't use them as much anymore, but I want to hold on to them and, you know, catch up. Like, even today I pulled a couple out just to remind myself of, like, ergonomics and best practices. So,
yeah, for sure. So, you know, oftentimes we'll see these beautiful, you go to Pinterest and you see these beautiful home offices that have all these pretty contraptions and things on the desk. It sounds like you're thinking that a lot of that isn't necessary and that it's important to just get the things that we need every day and maybe multiple times a day right on the desk. And then those other things can go either in a cabinet or a drawer underneath the desk or on some shelves behind us or next to us. Does that sound good?
Yeah, and I'd say that, you know, if you are inspired by like colors or like I know there are some cute ones like Marie Kondo has some really cute like desk organizers. Container Store has different kinds. If you enjoy seeing like different colored pens and you like to see that organization, I think whatever inspires you as well to be more productive. You know, for me it is like seeing less. And so I do like to hide it away. But if you enjoy seeing those things and they're aesthetically inspiring to you, then put them on your desk. But maybe just not all over, just in your one container that you get from Container Store.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, Nisa, let's talk a little bit about filing. So, oftentimes when I meet with people, I'm asking if they need file drawers in their home office. That's a very important item for some people. Some people don't need that space. But nowadays, we have the option to store the physical paperwork, and we have the options to store things, electronically in the cloud somewhere. And what's your insight on the best way to store items?
Yeah, so I think whether it's digitally or it's physically, I think the biggest thing to remember, especially with files, is this is with any organizing really, that there's a macro and a micro kind of organizing. So, for example, I use Freedom Filer. It's $30 on Amazon, and they have a bunch of categories, and like that way I can keep my physical papers in a filing cabinet there's some files that just need to be physical. That's just how it is. Whether you scan them and put them electronically, that's fine as well, but some things I think just need to be physical. But so I use Freedom Filer, and they have a lot of different categories, which is great. So for example, they have like all the taxes, since tax season is wrapping up. Yep. Hopefully people are done. So they have like taxes like 2022. So I could put all my taxes in there. But you can get bigger and go like income 2022, deductions 2022.
Oh, okay.
And then you can go even further and like rental income, W-2s, 1099s, or, like student loan deductions, like all these. So it just depends on like how will you find those things. That's the biggest thing. Right. To go easy in as it is out. So for me, I just put anything that has to do with taxes goes in 2020, whatever year it is. I would get too overwhelmed with too many categories of like,
you're more of a macro organizer in that scenario, correct?
In that scenario, I definitely am.
And micro organizing feels overwhelming to you?
Not always. I'd say like other office supplies, I love the micro organization. So like in a drawer, I like pens, highlighters, pencils. Like I will enjoy like micro organizing, not just writing utensils all mixed in, because sometimes I do enjoy a pen versus a pencil depending on what I'm doing. So in the sense of filing, not digitally, physically, in this sense of filing physically, I enjoy macro categories so that I don't get overwhelmed, because when you need that important document, going and trying to find it in the micro categories that you've created, you're like, I don't know where I put that. Like, was that taxes of 2022 of, income? I don't know. It's just the tax thing, so I'm just going to go grab the folder or whatever it is. So yeah, in that sense, it is that way. And that's the same way with digitally. You can create folders either on the cloud or on your desktop where, for example, I have an OBK folder. So anything that has to do with OBK lands in that folder on my desktop. Okay. But then it became so overwhelming. I had so many things in that folder that I was like, okay, this is OBK pictures. This is OBK documents, So then I kind of created some micro categories. So it just depends. Like when you start piling things into a space and you're like, okay, now this is too much, then maybe that's when you switch to micro categorizing.
Yeah, and I think micro organizing comes in so many different formats, right? So I can get a little overwhelmed if I break things down too much. You have to find that balance. But I also I put all of my theoretic client files in the same folder. But with that, then at some point it's too many. So one thing that I've done sort of from a micro standpoint is I'll give it a year. And when I get to the end of the year, I make a file for last year and I drag all the old stuff in there and it's there if I need it. I know I can go back and find it, but only in my current file is the items that I'm working on, now and through this year. So that's one of my macro versus micro ways that I organize my personal items. So tell me this, Nisa, do you prefer, and you probably work with a lot of clients, so maybe you can tell us what you think the trends are in design. Do you think it's more being able to see things out in a desk space, on a shelf, out where we can see them? Or do you think it's more of a trend right now for things to be behind? So in a cabinet, in a drawer, out of the way. Everybody I know is different on this, but what's your thought working with your clients on kind of what the top trends are in that right now?
Yeah, I definitely think people are starting to put things away.
Okay.
If you can recall, I'm going to move to a kitchen example just for a second. If you can recall, for the longest time, butcher blocks that were on the countertop were super popular. Like everyone, I don't know, it was just a thing. But now, super popular to put like your butcher blocks in your drawer. So putting everything, I think it's just like a visual declutter. Like we have so much stuff going on in our lives. Like busyness is just a thing nowadays. And so I think being able to see physically less allows your brain to be less less stressed. But comes with that is then all of a sudden all of our drawers look like junk drawers because they're like, I don't want to see any of this. So I'm just going to put it away. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a fine line of like when it when the getting rid of the visual clutter, whether that's in our home office or in our kitchen or wherever it might be, and that versus using, like making that like the usability of it, right? Is it a barrier to entry when it's put away? Do I think, oh, I don't want to get that out, that takes me longer to utilize? I used to work for a gentleman who was there, very much did not like visual clutter. And at the end of my day, I would have a notepad and all of my to-do projects written out on my desk for the morning, like I do here. And I would go through that every night before I left the office and write out my projects for the morning, and I'd have front and center on my desk. And he would come in and tell me my desk was a mess. And I'd be like, it's super organized. Everything I need for the morning is right here in this pile. But to him, that felt like visual clutter, and it made him think that my desk was a mess. Where from the way my brain worked, I felt like I was very organized. And so eventually I had to learn that I could make that pile at the end of the day. I had to find a cabinet or a drawer to put it in when I went home. And then when I came back in the morning, I'd pull it out, and it was our compromise. He felt like I left my desk neat and tidy at the end of the day. And I felt like I was prepared, but could easily get to the tools and resources that I need.
Totally. And that comes down to the productivity again. You feel productive when you have things that you're writing down and you're looking at it. Yes. For him, productivity is halted by the distractions on his desk. So yeah, everyone's different. And going back to the kitchen example again, if somebody doesn't want to walk over, get their knife out of their drawer to cut up their vegetables, they want them right next to the sink to just grab and use, then that's their efficiency and their productivity, and that is more valuable to them than the aesthetic of the clutter-free countertop. So everyone's different.
Yeah, for sure. So Nisa, when you go in and meet with a client and you're making a plan, whether it be for their home office or some other space in their home, how do you, what are the questions that you ask? How do you determine which of those categories is a best fit for them? Like what's that process look like?
Yeah, so I think the first question you want to ask for any space is like, what does your daily routine look like? Like, what do you do on a daily basis? Like, what is important to you that needs to have some light shed on it
Okay.
before I tuck it away? Um, for everyone that looks completely different. So that's a huge question you want to ask right away. Um, it's everyone's so different because everyone has such different things. That's why I love this job, because it's a different puzzle every time with a different client and different needs, and it's the best. But um so I think sometimes when you start organizing, you start going through things, you start to see patterns of like what that person is using and not using. And then like making better questions based off of like, I noticed, like this was really shoved in the back of this cabinet.
Yes.
Do you even need it anymore? Like, or is this something you forgot about and it's, needs to be brought back to the surface? So
Yeah, I think that there are like I think we all at some point in our life think we have some great plan for organization. Let's put it in this container, let's put that container there.
mhm,
And then we work with it and we utilize it and we have some experience with it. And sometimes what we thought was going to work is a great solution. And sometimes I think we live with things and then we're like, no, the pencil cup needs to go on that side of my desk and the phone charger goes on that side, whatever it might be, right? Where we have to have that experience of knowing, oh yeah, this works. And sometimes I think, I know for in my role with my clients, when I go in and meet with them, I'm listening to what they're telling me, but I'm also
mhm,
giving them suggestions. Have you considered this? I actually was meeting with a client last night. We were talking about closet space, and they are frustrated because their closet in their master bedroom is small. Their master bedroom is very large. So I made a suggestion like, have you guys thought about doing some built-in
mhm.
organizational space in the bedroom? Because you've got more space than you need in the bedroom and not enough in the closet. Is this a way that we can kind of subsidize, I might say, the space in the closet and provide you some additional space somewhere else? So I imagine you guys probably are always making suggestions and then listening for what that client's feedback might be.
Definitely. I think that like where you and I come in too, that's just like an easy benefit is that we don't live in that space. We
Right,
don't work in
right.
that space every single day. So they can't see sometimes, it's not their fault. They're there all the time. They can't see the like, oh, I never thought about this bedroom having a closet because that's just never how it's looked. So us being able to come in sometimes and giving them a different perspective and different suggestions is comes easy to us just
Right.
because we're like, we don't live here, we don't work here every single day.
Yes, and I think having that fresh perspective is a great tool that we can, in both of our roles, we can bring into an environment and really listen to what the client, wants and needs and make some suggestions that they haven't thought about. I actually did a personal like interior design project in my house many, many years ago, and I was just stuck. I could not figure out what to do with this fireplace wall I had in my house. I took some pictures of it, took it to all my designer friends at the office I worked at the time, and I showed everybody the pictures, and they gave me all kinds of great suggestions
Mm-hmm.
that I never would have thought of
Yep.
because I lived in the space and I had, kind of a predetermined idea of how that space was supposed to work, and some outside input was very helpful. And luckily, I had some people um, in my world on to give me a different perspective, to give me some different ideas, because we do, we learn the environment we're in. When I walk into a client's house, I have all kinds of different ideas because it's new and
Yeah,
fresh for sure.
definitely.
So Nisa, what do you think if we're talking ergonomics, back to ergonomics? I actually had this conversation with a client the other day And I'd love your perspective. So my client, we were sitting at a table, and an average 99.9, I would say, countertop desk spaces for a desk type area is at 30 inches. So it's a height that we're comfortable at. We're used to working at that space. I had some clients who were convinced their desk at home was taller than that. And I said, great. If you need a taller desk, we custom build, we can make it whatever size it is. But I really wanted to encourage them that we go to the space, we measure their current desk and make sure what the height of the current desk was, so that the ergonomics were going to be right. So what's your thought on, like, if you're dealing with somebody really tall or really petite, or even a kid's space, and obviously kids are growing and changing, but what's your thought on varying some of those things specific to each person? Or do you think it's a pretty universal kind of size and shape for things as far as ergonomics? What's your thought?
Yeah, so I think that you probably know more about like the actual inches of a desk because you work more in that environment. For me, it doesn't matter the height of the desk, and you're right, because it could be a built-in that you did for a client who then moves, and then a new client moves in, or a new homeowner moves in.
Yeah.
They are much taller, like a whole foot taller, and you're like, okay, well, this doesn't work for me anymore. But it still does, because you just need to get the right chair. So as long as you can get a chair that can move up and down, obviously if it's too short, like, we're gonna have some issues, because there's at one point, like, your torso and your feet, your legs are just too tall for like a kid's desk. But as long as you can kind of, again, just move your chair up to a position where your knees are at a 90-degree angle with the floor, then, and that your elbows can also be at a 90-degree angle, so that your wrists and hands are coming straight out in front of you. That's really all you need to keep your spine in that good straight posture. So I think it's more, honestly, the chair. If your desk is, let's say it's super high, and you bring your chair all the way up to the very top, and now your feet don't touch the ground, well, then just get like a little step stool to come under your feet. So I think that there's a lot of things that you can use from home. You could do a book, you could do, one of those steppers from exercising, or I know that online there's a ton of like actual ergonomic, like, this is a stand for your feet, because it's a thing. So I think it's more about getting the placement right around the desk, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, that reminds me of a funny story, and I'm going to date myself when I tell this story. But when I was a kid, around the dinner table at my grandma's house for holidays, back in the old days, you had these big phone books, right? And the phone books were our booster chairs when we were kids. Stack up a couple phone books, and then mom would lift you up onto the booster, or onto the phone books, to get you at the right level to be able to sit at the dining room table. So when you talk about that, I think about, okay, I could put a phone book under my feet, so my feet touch the ground if my chair is not at the right level. But
who has phone books anymore? But I know a lot of us have some massive textbooks from college. So
exactly.
Use those.
Yes, and there's always something, right? A pillow. When I was having those at the beginning of COVID, when I was sitting at my desk a lot and trying to rotate chairs and figure out, I was trying different, like a pillow underneath me, a towel, like trying all these things to figure out what the best solution was, and using lots of things I have in my home.
Definitely.
So before we wrap up today, Nisa, what's your takeaway on home offices? If someone is sitting down and thinking about building out, designing a home office space, what do you think's like the first step? What do we need to take into consideration when we're laying out that space?
I think it's similar to organizing, where, again, you just want to, like, what do you do the most? What is the most important. What are you doing every single day? So I know I've heard that if you know, and maybe you know more about this, but if you have your desk facing the door, that is supposed to be very, like, help success. So I think that's one good thing. I think it's also, like, do you have a lot of files? Like, what kinds of things do you even have in your office that need to be in there? Like, if you have a lot of files and they all need to be in the office, then maybe we need to have more built-in cabinets. So I think it all comes down to, like, what are you using every day? What are you using multiple times a day? And, like, what needs to be in at your fingertips, and what can be put away, what can be stored higher or farther away. And
so making an inventory of what we need in the space, and then going through that inventory and figuring out what's in zone 1, what's in zone 2, and where those things go, and then laying out from there.
Definitely. Yep.
Well, Nisa, it has been so great for everybody that watches the show to get to meet you today and to have you on and talk about home offices. Like I said, we've talked about that a few times over the last few years, but it's an important space. More and more people are working from home, and it becomes an important part of, being productive. And, I think as we spend more time working from home, I think we spend more time at that home office, right? Harder to turn the day off when we are working from home. So if anybody needs help with designing an office space, I am happy to come out and do a consultation regarding how to lay that space out. And I know you guys are happy to come out and talk about how to organize it, what to put where, and how to get all the right things in the right spaces. Yeah. Guys, if you're watching, thanks for joining Nisa and I today. And we'll be back next month for another edition of Designed for Organization. Guys, have a great week.
Thanks.